I've always believed quiet has its own kind of music. The way the creek hums under the bridge in early morning light, the sound of boots on timber, the soft groan of planks that have seen too many seasons. For 16 years, that little bridge behind my house carried nothing heavier than my pickup, a couple of kids on bikes, and once in a while, a neighbor's old golf cart when the main road iced over. It was simple, solid, and mine. Just a wooden promise that I could come home without asking permission from anyone. Then one morning, that piece got crushed under the sound of a diesel engine. I stepped out with a mug of coffee still in my hand and saw a bright orange cement truck grinding down my driveway, its drums spinning, gravel spitting in every direction. And standing beside it, clipboard in hand, was our brand new HOA president, Valerie. Blonde bob, mirrored sunglasses, the kind of smile that never means good morning. The bridge trembled as the truck rolled forward. The driver hesitated, but Valerie waved like she was signaling an aircraft carrier. I yelled, "Hey, that bridge isn't rated for that weight." She glanced over, half smiling. "Then maybe you should have built it stronger, Ethan." That line right there, that was when I knew it wasn't about cement. It was about control. Now, I'm not someone who picks fights for sport. When the HOA formed 3 years ago, I voted yes. I figured it'd keep the entrance tidy, maybe get us a street light or two. $50 a year, no big deal. But power's a funny thing. Give the wrong person a clipboard, and they'll start thinking they're mayor. Valerie got herself elected president after the first board resigned. Her husband's a contractor, so suddenly every community improvement involved one of his trucks. I got my first letter from her a month later, friendly reminder. It said, "Your kayak rack violates visual harmony guidelines." Attached was a picture of my rack sitting 20 feet inside my own line, bothering no one. I replied politely, attached my county survey, and thought that'd be the end of it. It wasn't. At the next HOA meeting, Valerie rolled out a laminated map that looked like a kid drew it in crayon. No scale, no topography, just a crooked blue squiggle labeled Shared Creek Access. She pointed at it with her pen and said, "As you can see, both sides of this bridge provide ingress to community recreation space." I stood, held up the official survey stamped by Lincoln County, and said, "As you can also see, the public easement stops 53 feet before the creek. The bridge, my bridge, is private property." She smiled the way people do when they're already planning their next move. "We'll take it under review." That's HOA language for "we'll do what we want." 2 weeks later, I woke to the roar of that same cement truck crossing my boards again, heading toward a muddy lot Valerie had declared Phase 1, community courts. The driver honked, waved, and kept going. I could feel the vibration through the ground. That night, I sunk a cedar post at the mouth of the approach and screwed in a reflective sign, "Private bridge, 5-ton limit, trespassers prosecuted." I ran a chain between 2 bollards and locked it with a padlock the size of a fist. By lunch the next day, the chain was gone, the sign ripped off, and in its place, a pastel-colored HOA notice zip-tied to my post. Noncompliance. Unauthorized obstruction. Remove within 24 hours or be fined. That was the moment I stopped being polite. I started documenting everything. Tire tracks, timestamps, license plates, photos of Valerie's husband's trucks crossing the bridge. Paper can argue, but pictures don't. Neighbors began picking sides. Some texted me things like, "You're absolutely right." Others posted online, "If he didn't want neighbors using it, he shouldn't have built it in the middle." Which is funny, because it's not in the middle. It's on my land. Land I pay taxes on, maintain, and repair myself. My buddy Joel came by that evening, handed me a coffee, and said, "You're about to have a war." Already in one, I told him. At the next board meeting, Valerie had a full PowerPoint called Community Connectivity Plan. Stock photos, smiling families, zero mention of permission. When she thanked me for my spirit of cooperation, I said, "Spirit isn't binding, Valerie. Deeds are." She raised an eyebrow. "We'll consult legal." I smiled back. "You might want to consult physics first." The next week, another cement truck showed up. I stepped onto the bridge, hand up like a crossing guard. Valerie was in the passenger seat this time. "You're over the weight limit," I said. She motioned to the future pickleball pit beyond the creek. "Community project. Don't make this harder than it has to be." "The sign says 5 tons, I told her. "The sign wasn't approved by the board," she said flatly. "Neither was the bridge, I said. The driver laughed under his breath. Valerie rolled up the window. The truck kept going. The bridge bowed, boards creaked, but held. Barely. When the last wheel crossed, I saw a hairline crack shimmer down the plank, a warning. That night, under porch light, I traced that crack with my thumb and thought, all right, if they want a lesson, they'll get one. Joel came by the next morning, toolbox in hand. We fixing or teaching, he asked. Both, I said. We pulled up the decking near the center span, exposing the support plates we'd installed 15 years ago when I first built the thing. I pointed to the load-bearing bolts. If I remove these and replace them with shear pins, it'll still handle cars and pickups, but the next time someone brings a 12-ton truck. Joel nodded slowly. Then gravity gets the final say. We spent the afternoon swapping the plates. Nothing dangerous, no sabotage, just physics. I tested it with my truck. It barely flexed. Perfect. We mounted 2 trail cameras, one under the decking, one facing the approach. Every crossing recorded, every angle covered. By dusk, it looked exactly the same. 3 mornings later, I heard that diesel growl again. Valerie stood beside the truck, hands on hips like she was leading a parade. I didn't move from the porch. I just watched the live feed on my tablet as the driver eased onto the bridge. The shear pins bent, not snapped, just enough to dip the front wheels a few inches. The driver hesitated. Valerie shouted, "Keep going." He did. The back wheels cleared, but the rear drum tilted, and half a ton of cement spilled out like gray lava into the creek. Valerie screamed, half fury, half disbelief. "You're finished, Ethan. You're going to jail." I walked down calmly, hands in my pockets. "Morning, Valerie. You might want to read the sign next time." "You sabotaged this bridge," she yelled. "No," I said. "You sabotaged common sense." Right then a sheriff's cruiser rolled up. Someone had called ahead. The deputy took one look, then said, "Ma'am, this is private property. There's a posted limit." Driver ignored it. Valerie's jaw hung open. "But it's a community route." He squinted. "Got documents proving that." Her silence said everything. I showed him my footage. He nodded. "Looks clear to me." Joel whispered, "You planned that too well." "Just planned it enough," I said. Valerie tried to climb onto the truck, slipped, and ended up ankle-deep in cement slurry. A couple neighbors laughed out loud. Even the deputy cracked a grin. By dinner, the video was everywhere. HOA president's cement truck sinks on private bridge, instant karma. 500,000 views in 2 days. Someone added dramatic music and the caption, "Gravity always wins." Valerie, of course, doubled down. She sent a mass email titled, "Unsafe Private Structure Puts Community at Risk." I framed it and hung it above my desk. The next morning, she and 2 HOA volunteers in neon vests showed up at the bridge with clipboards, pointing, measuring, taking photos. One of them read the sign out loud, "Private Bridge, 5-ton limit," and whispered, "Maybe we should go." Valerie barked, "Keep recording." An hour later, I received a notice of fine, $25,000 for property damage to community asset. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. That afternoon, the county inspector came by, polite guy named Ray. "Got a complaint," he said. "Claims you built this without permits." I handed him a folder. "Built 16 years ago. Approved by the county." He flipped through, nodded. "Looks fine to me." Valerie must have been watching, because 5 minutes later she came marching down, hair frizzed, voice sharp. "What's going on here?" Ray said, "Inspection. Everything checks out." "That's impossible. It collapsed." He pointed at the bridge, still standing. "Looks solid to me, ma'am." She glared at both of us, muttered something about corruption, and stomped back to her SUV. That night, Joel and I sat on the railing with 2 beers, listening to the creak. "Think she's done?" he asked. I shook my head. "She's not the type to surrender. She's the type to file paperwork." He laughed. "Then I'll bring popcorn." Sure enough, a week later I got served. Ironwood Ridge Homeowners Association versus Ethan Harper. The lawsuit claimed I'd willfully destroyed shared infrastructure and caused emotional distress. They wanted $200,000 in damages. I called my lawyer, Dana Fields, small-town attorney, sharp as barbed wire. She read through it and said, "This is ridiculous. You have photos, maps, video. We'll counter with reality." While she prepared, the HOA began to splinter. Board members resigned. One, Tom, a retired engineer, called me privately and said, "For what it's worth, most of us think she's lost it." Still, Valerie wasn't giving up. She printed flyers calling me a menace, filed noise complaints, even hired a drone pilot to document ongoing hazards. I waved at the drones with a cup of coffee every morning. Then came the day in court. The courthouse smelled like old books and frustration. Valerie showed up in a navy suit, expression carved from granite. Her lawyer, all gelled hair and arrogance, opened with, "Your Honor, the defendant deliberately weakened a community bridge, endangering lives." Dana stood and said calmly, "Correction, private bridge, private land, posted limit ignored." We presented the videos, the deed, the county maps. Then we called Joel and Tom as witnesses. Tom explained the load calculations. Joel testified about seeing HOA trucks cross despite warnings. Finally, Valerie took the stand. Her lawyer asked, "Do you believe Mr. Harper intentionally caused the bridge to fail?" "I know he did," she said. "He told me once gravity would teach us boundaries." Dana rose. "Mrs. Dawson, how many times did HOA vehicles cross my client's bridge?" Valerie hesitated. "Maybe 10. And each time over the 5-ton limit. They weren't official limits." "Meaning they weren't approved by you?" Laughter rippled through the room. The judge even smiled. Dana continued, "Are you aware your husband's truck weighed 12 tons loaded?" Valerie's face went red. "And are you aware this document?" Dana held up the county plat. "Shows the bridge entirely on Mr. Harper's property?" Valerie opened her mouth, but nothing came out. When Dana sat down, the judge leaned forward, adjusted his glasses, and said, "I've seen many HOA disputes, but this might be the first time someone buried their credibility in wet cement." Case dismissed. The gavel hit like thunder. Outside, reporters waited. "Mr. Harper, any comment?" one asked. I smiled. "Never underestimate a good bridge." Valerie brushed past me, muttering about appeals. Dana laughed softly. "You handled that well." "I've had practice," I said. Every HOA meeting was a rehearsal. I figured that was the end. It wasn't. 2 days later, the HOA called an emergency post-trial meeting. I went out of curiosity. The room was packed. Valerie stood at the front, voice trembling but defiant. "The court's decision was based on incomplete information. We will appeal to protect this community." I raised my hand. "Before you do, you might want to see this." I walked to the projector, plugged in a flash drive, and pulled up a government document stamped in red. U.S. Federal Waterway License, Private Access Corridor, 2007. "This," I said, "is a 20-year federal permit giving my property exclusive crossing rights over this creek. The water, the bridge, and the land beneath are outside HOA jurisdiction." Gasps filled the room. Valerie's eyes darted wildly. "You forged that?" Tom stood. "No, he didn't. I verified it myself this morning. He even sent me the renewal letter from the Department of Transportation." Hannah, one of the neighbors who'd been neutral for months, stood too. "Valerie, you told us the bridge was community property. You used HOA funds for your lawsuit." "That's not true," Valerie snapped. Tom raised a folder. "We audited the accounts. $42,000 in legal fees paid without board approval." The crowd erupted. Someone shouted, "Is that why our playground lights don't work?" Valerie slammed her hands on the table. "You think this is over? He's just one man with a bridge." I looked at her evenly. "You're right. But that bridge carried truth, and you drove right over it." The room broke into laughter, the kind that's half relief, half justice. Tom called for a vote to remove her as president. Every hand went up except hers. Valerie gathered her folders, trembling, and stormed out. No cameras this time, no audience left to applaud. A week later, I got a letter from the new board. It wasn't a fine, it was an apology. "The Ironwood Ridge HOA formally acknowledges your ownership of Harper Bridge and apologizes for prior misconduct. Thank you for your patience and your example." Enclosed was a check for $1,000 for legal expenses. I didn't cash it. I framed it beside the photo of the bridge. Life went quiet again. The creek found its rhythm. The boards creaked like old friends stretching after a long nap. Joel came by with 2 beers. "So," he said, "what's next for the man who beat the HOA?" "Retirement," I said. He laughed. "Sure, until someone paints their mailbox the wrong color." We sat there, watching sunlight ripple on the water. I thought about how something so small, a bridge, could become a battleground for pride, power, and boundaries. People think stories like this are about revenge. They're not. They're about respect, about holding your ground without losing yourself. Every time I cross that bridge now, I hear what it taught me. Patience isn't weakness, silence isn't surrender, and gravity always keeps its promises. So tell me, have you ever dealt with your own version of Valerie? Someone who mistook kindness for permission? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story made you smile, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's fighting their own HOA battle. Because out here, there's always another story waiting to cross the line.